Hello, I am the Podman. Welcome to an excerpt from my full-length podcast, I Am the Podman, a Beatles podcast review. If you enjoyed this excerpt, please check out the full-length podcast wherever podcasts are sold. And please like and subscribe. Thanks again, and enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the premiere episode of I Am the Podman, a Beatles podcast review.
Sugar Bum Fairy, Sugar Bum Fairy.
I read the news today, oh boy, about a lucky man.
Even in this early take, he has a voice which sends shivers down the spine.
Well, I just had to laugh. I saw the photograph.
Please keep that in mind for later in the show. You know, on my premiere episode, I said I would only be reviewing podcasts and probably wouldn't stray from that format very much. But I also said that I was often known to lie. And to start off this first actual episode, I'm going to make that come true. I want to talk about some other things because it is such an amazing time to be a Beatle fan. That's not always a good thing. There have been some pretty unpleasant memories in the last few weeks. To start off, on the 5th of December, we lost Denny Lane, and I want to send out my condolences to his family and his friends. Denny was an incredibly important part of Wings during what I would consider to be the heyday of Wings, Band on the Run, Venus and Mars, the Wings Over America tour. We will miss him and his incredible talent. Of course, closer to home, on November the 29th, we recalled the 22nd anniversary of George Harrison's transition from the material world into the world of light. We miss him all the time.
नत्वेवाहं जातु नासं नत्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम् नत्वेवाहं जातु नासं नत्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम्.
And then, of course, on December the 8th, the 43rd anniversary of one of the most incomprehensible acts in history, the murder of John Lennon. What a voice that humanity lost that day, and it's never been replaced. What we would give to hear what John would think about and sing about in 2023. In fact, 2023 has been a pretty unpleasant year in many ways. As we headed into the final few months, the world seemed to be in a pretty sorry place. Some awful wars, the light of freedom seems to dim minute by minute. If only there was a light in the darkness. And then, as they did so many times, on November the 1st, we heard this.
I know it's true. It's all because of you. And if I make it through, it's all because of you.
A voice that even in that early version sends shivers down the spine. I defy anyone listening to this podcast to have been watching that wonderful documentary on the Beatles' final song, Now and Then. When that part played, if you weren't sobbing, there's something definitely wrong with you. The world didn't earn a new Beatles song. In fact, just the opposite. But it was a gift from the four Beatles to all of us. And on November the 2nd, Now and Then was released. On the 3rd, we saw Peter Jackson's sure-to-be 2023 Grammy Award-winning video. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the song Now and Then itself. Suffice it to say that other than a few malcontents, the song was universally loved, sold millions, and made number one in Austria, Germany, Japan, and of course Great Britain. It only made it to number 2 in the United States, unfortunately, but I'm going to say that was probably due to voter fraud. Now and Then was also the first number 1 Beatles single in Great Britain that was not credited to Lennon and McCartney, being credited only to John Lennon. The consensus seems to be that the song is a fitting end to the Beatles' legacy. The song, which to my mind does seem to be about the relationship that John had with the other Beatles, and specifically Paul, had many listeners thinking about their own relationships, friends and family, or the Beatles, that for one reason or another are no longer with us. The universal emotions and ability to see ourselves in the lyrics made it a real Beatles song and great art. Watching reaction videos, and believe me, I've probably watched about 100, and seeing people from all walks of life break down only confirms this. And speaking of breaking down, has anything made you laugh and cry at the same time as much as Peter Jackson's video, which was released on the 3rd of November? Rarely has a music video done such a wonderful job of complementing the song. But Now and Then and the video have a far greater significance to the Beatles story. I think it represents the final step in the altering, some might say whitewashing, and some might say finally getting a more accurate account of the disintegration of the greatest band of all time. The narrative of the Beatles' breakup was unfortunately dominated by Lennon Remembers, John's interview for Rolling Stone that subsequently, much to John's chagrin and expressly against his wishes, was turned into a book. There are so many problems with Lennon Remembers, and one of those is that it poisoned the well for 48 years of Beatles narrative. The interviews were conducted by Jan Wenner, who was neither a journalist nor able to understand British humor or specifically John Lennon's humor. If one has the opportunity to listen to the actual tapes of the recording, it's very clear that John is in a much more jovial mood than the written word would indicate. At the time of the interviews, John was also influenced by two pretty despicable human beings. If you don't believe me, take a listen to John's interviews from 1974, when he was temporarily at least free from both. The 1971 bickering in public and in song only confirmed to the public that for the last couple years, being a Beatle was sheer torture. In the following years, there were glimmers of hope. Dumping Klein, The Lost Weekend, and here a word of thanks to the beautiful May Pang for the influence she had on John's life and music. And other factors made it seem that things might improve, but there always seemed to be an obstacle. The anthology really didn't make any huge strides to change the narrative that had been in place for the preceding quarter of a century. Then, in 2018, we got the White Album. The outtakes didn't sound like recording the double album was all that miserable. In fact, it seemed like the boys were having fun. That was followed in 2021 by Peter Jackson's monumental Get Back series. Suddenly, the, quote, most miserable sessions on Earth seemed to generally show that while there were a few rough patches, the Fabs were still a good little band of age-old friends. Now and Then completed the circle. The song went from this to this.
I know it's true. It's all
John's song so full of love and longing for his mates and his partner that it's a wonder someone didn't erase it. But she didn't, and 46 years after it was written, it became the final Beatles song and proof that magic is real. Well, that's all for now, and remember, you can catch the full podcast, I Am the Podman, a Beatles podcast review, on any popular podcast platforms. Thanks for listening, and please remember to like and subscribe. Until next time, I am the Podman.
Hey, man, hey, man, love.